Russia-Ukraine crisis. Welle's anchor and European correspondent Christine Mhundwa joins us tonight. Christine, good evening to you, and thank you so much for making time to speak to us. Firstly, the reaction to this invasion has been quite strong. Let's perhaps round up some of the key voices and organizations that have taken a stand against what they describe as really breaking international law.
Happy throughout the day, capital after capital here in Europe have been releasing statements. There is widespread condemnation to this invasion by Russia into Ukraine. Some have gone as far as calling it the darkest day for Europe since the end of World War II. There is the sense here that this is not just a Ukrainian problem, not just a problem in the east of Ukraine as it has been over the last few years, but this is going to destabilize the region. Indeed, you have European Union member states today. I'm talking about the Baltic states, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. These are former Soviet republics. These are countries that share a border with Russia who are now fearful of their territorial integrity now that Russia has taken the action that it has in Ukraine. So we're being reminded here that this is something that has been provoked by the Russian president, that he has gone into this on his own. The messaging from Europe leaders, and we heard from the European Union Chief Ursula von der Leyen, we heard from the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, from the European Council President Charles Michel, that this is solely Vladimir Putin's provocation, that he has gone at it alone, and that he is effectively going to meet Western unity. And indeed, we have seen that unity come through across the board, not just the European Union's 27 member states, but going as far as across the Atlantic with Washington and other allies as well, Australia, Japan, coming in to condemn what is being seen as a real threat to the stability of international peace, law, and order. Kathy.
Christine, it's far from over in as far as the responses, whether from the European or NATO, are concerned. We've seen, of course, the issuing of sanctions that are hoped will push Russia into a corner and perhaps lead them back onto the trajectory of diplomacy. Can the European Union and its allies impose any more sanctions at this stage? Is that some of the things that they'll be discussing?
Absolutely, Kathy, you're right. In a few hours, the 27 heads of government of the European Union member states are going to be meeting here in Brussels. They're going to be finalizing that next round of sanctions. You're saying more sanctions. That is because 2 days ago we were talking about a first package of sanctions that had been announced. That package was in response to Vladimir Putin of Russia recognizing the independence of two separatist regions in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbas region. I'm talking about Luhansk and Donetsk. They targeted lawmakers in Russia, for example, for their involvement in the decision to acknowledge the independence of those regions. They also targeted 27 entities as well as individuals that they sanctioned. We are now likely to see broader sanctions that will be targeted at the Russian economy, certain sectors of the Russian economy. We're looking at things like further limiting and restricting Russia's access to capital and financial markets in the European Union. Washington is making similar moves, and so is the United Kingdom. So that's really going to have some kind of an effect. We know that they're looking to limit the export of technological items like semiconductors. You need these effectively to run a modern economy. They're going to go after state banks. They're going to go after more individuals that are close to the Kremlin. And possibly we will see more and more European member states not issuing visas to Russian nationals unless it is in the situation of an asylum visa. So some EU member states, for example, like the Czech Republic, has already said it will not be issuing visas to Russian nationals. That could be a decision taken at bloc-wide level. I have to point out here that going into this meeting, before they finalize this package, different EU member states have different interests. For example, we have heard some reporting that the Italians might insist that we keep luxury goods off of the table for now. Of course, you would understand Russians love their Gucci's and the like. You might have the Belgians also coming in and say, let's keep diamonds off the table for now. So they've got to come together. There is already a set of sanctions that they agree upon. Perhaps they want to make more ground on that front. But we're already seeing from a cultural perspective, just down at the bottom, for example, grocery stores in Estonia saying that they are going to be taking Russian products off of the shelves. So it's really going to be sanctions that we are told will be unprecedented, that these are going to damage the Russian economy, frustrate life in Russia. It's going to be felt by the ordinary Russian, and many Russians, I have to point out, are already in a hard up position. This is a country where most people live in poverty. So this is really going to have a massive impact. And as one EU official told me, that President Vladimir Putin and Russia's obsession with the past of restoring Russia to its former glory and greatness, the kind we saw in the Soviet Republic, is going to cost Russia its future. That is something that the Russian president appears to be willing to do with this.
NATO was unequivocal earlier in the day, Christine, when it came to its message around how it's ready to defend its allies, and in fact that it is already taking a posture of being defensive. The big question really seems to be how far NATO has an appetite in getting involved in this conflict. Let's talk about just some of what they have done so far to assist Ukraine in fighting this invasion, and possibly what else could be on the agenda.
Kathy, I'm going to get right to what they will not do, because that is the quickest answer, and that is NATO will not be sending any combat troops to Ukraine. NATO will not be triggering what is called Article 5, that is triggering the defense process to stand in and help a NATO member. The only time NATO has done that in its history was in 2001 after the 9/11 attacks in the United States, when NATO deployed troops to Afghanistan. The NATO Secretary General, as you rightly pointed out today, was talking earlier today. He made it clear that there will be no such in the case of Ukraine. What NATO is currently doing is it is bolstering the eastern flank. It is sending more troops and reinforcing existing NATO units in, for example, Poland, in those Baltic states that I mentioned earlier, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. These are countries that have requested additional support. The Lithuanian Foreign Minister just the other day was talking about the need for an additional battalion that's anywhere between 400 to about 1,300 troops being deployed to NATO. We also know that some 120 battleships, some 120 fighter jets are at the ready. These are on high alert should a NATO member come under attack. Now, you'd be wondering which NATO member could potentially come under attack. Again, it is those Baltic countries. If you look at the world map, the Baltic countries are very close to Russia. These are former Soviet republics, as well as Poland. These are countries that have told NATO that they are worried about their territorial integrity. Tomorrow, NATO is going to be holding another special summit. It will be virtual. The U.S. President Joe Biden will be attending that, as well as all the other 30 allies or 29 allies. They are going to be meeting again. Presumably, there will be more commitments to see how to further stabilize the region. But for Ukraine, they've promised additional military aid, that is sending more military capacity, assisting the Ukraine military with intelligence and also financial assistance as well. There is also the reality, and we were alluding to it earlier in the program, about the humanitarian situation that is already unfolding as people flow out of Ukraine via Poland to get into the European Union. Member states are going to have to be discussing that as well, how to distribute the load of people coming in. But countries like Denmark, for example, have already indicated that they are willing to take on refugees coming in to the European Union from Ukraine.
Christine Mhundwa, we're going to leave it there for tonight. Thank you so much for your time. She is a news anchor and Europe correspondent for Deutsche Welle. When you